Welcome to the Trust Factor Radio, bringing you interviews and insights to unlock the power of the subconscious mind to create authority, credibility, and trust. With your host, the Authority Architect, and best-selling author, Neil Howe.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is your host, Neil Howe, and today my special guest is Chris Cox. Chris is the founder of Out of This World Marketing in Oklahoma City, and he helps restaurants and hospitality groups create, maintain, and expand their customer base and sales via digital marketing, social media, videography, and web design. And he's grown Out of This World Marketing from a part-time side hustle to a full-time 3-person team. Welcome to the show, Chris Cox.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, I'm looking forward to learning from you. I've seen some of the stuff that you do, especially with the social media to grab attention. And, that's really what it's all about. So, before we get going, tell us a little bit about yourself, Chris, and Out of This World Marketing.
Sure. Yeah. So I started doing digital marketing, a little bit of social media on the side. I started to actually really enjoy it, and it at one point became not work anymore, and it just kind of felt like a hobby. I got to pick some excellent clients. I started off like anyone else would. Any client I can get, I would sign on. Eventually, that kind of burned me out a little bit, and I thought, which clients are burning me out the most? And it's the ones that weren't restaurants. For some reason, I just love food. There's a lot that you can do with food. I mean, you always have to have a changing menu. It's always a new call to action. And it's hard to get people in the door, but once they're in, I mean, they start generating content for you, which is a lot different than if I'm working with, for example, an HVAC unit company where there's not any user-generated content. It's all client-generated. So I'd have to come up with post content, everything. Once we have some beautiful food and restaurants going, the synergy and the collaboration from guests and the actual accounts, it's just unreal. And I was just having so much fun just being that brand and interacting with the guests. So that kind of made me take a deeper dive and realize, man, I love the food and hospitality industry. I'm only going to work with those people. So eventually, after several years of doing it, I've built up a pretty big client list of a lot of local restaurants and some larger distributors. Coop Aleworks is one of my big local brewers here, but they distribute across America. And I'm grateful to be working with both big and small clients and of course, local to Oklahoma City.
Definitely. Well, that's great that you have a niche that creates content for you. That's always a really big struggle for a lot of businesses, isn't it?
Yeah, so it really is. And it just adds so much more fun when people can be excited about your brands as well. And it just really is hard to get people excited about some of those services versus products or food.
So give me an example then of having this content created for you from the patrons of the restaurant. How does that all work?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways we can actually drive that. Sometimes it's just 100% organic. We run a special and we have the just beautiful dish and users take pictures of foods. I don't know when food pictures got so popular, but they sure are. My Instagram is just flooded with food pictures. And then we start getting tags and we start getting some hype. And when you share it, people get excited. And then they show it to their friends. Hey, look, they're sharing my picture. And then the friends want to be on the pictures. And we just snowball effect this whole thing. And there's other ways to drive it. And that can be contest. We can ask people to submit their best photo of XYZ and start driving some more user-generated content that way. And then the third way we do is sometimes we'll invite influencers into our restaurant. And we're very clear. We say, please enjoy this meal on us. We're not asking for anything in return. But I think by doing that, we're just creating a good relationship with these influencers. And more times than not, they actually go back home and post some content that they took in the store and create blogs, videos, whatever. So those are kind of my 3 steps to getting good user-generated content.
So you mentioned that three-step process for generating user-generated content. Can you go over that a little bit more for me?
Sure. So I really have three methods of getting just some quality user-generated content. And the first one's kind of more of a quality control thing. If we just present beautiful dishes or a beautiful environment, a clean and pristine environment, people tend to just take photos on their own. And I know scrolling through my own Instagram, food pictures are still a very popular thing. So when we get that kind of quote unquote free content, my goal is just to make sure that people are kind of tagging us, or if they're location tagging and don't tag our account, I'll know to crawl through that every couple of weeks and grab some user content and share it and give them credit, of course, and everything, and tag them back so they know, hey, our page is engaged with you. A second method we do is contests, or just kind of requesting user content, and we'll do something like send us your best photo of this local beer we have on tap or this hot wing, and users will send us this content that they're creating and generating for us and tagging and all this, and we'll kind of just select a winner, and they can be a gift card winner or whatever, but this gives us some added incentive for people to come into our restaurant, one. Two, just to create that premium content because they're trying to win a prize, right? And three, it just makes us look good because we're not just one way communicating and just shouting what our message is. Instead, we've got this like two-way to where user-generated content is making it onto our accounts, so people see, hey, this restaurant actually has engagement. People go here. And then the third way I would say is we kind of invite social influencers or media influencers, and we'll invite them out to any of our restaurants or venues and just offer them a chance to get the full experience, and it'll be on our tab here. And we don't ask them for anything in return, but most times they take photos or videos and they go home and create a blog post or a large social post and tag us up and had the best time ever and blah, blah, blah. Like, we really appreciate that we can have that relationship with people. And I think it's just a good show of community that we want to be engaged with our local market here, as well as some of the larger influencers as well when we get them in the door.
Yeah, having those influencers in any industry now, that influencer marketing is, becoming really popular. But it seems the majority of the marketing that you do for the restaurant then is kind of a social play. Is that right?
A large aspect of most of my restaurant clients would definitely be social. I also do some, of course, advertising in the traditional world. So we've done radio, commercial for video, for TV and web video, print ads too. We have some good local pieces here that make sense for our restaurants to be in. So we do have kind of an overall marketing plan, but social is just for food. Marketing is huge because food is very visual and it's very spontaneous. And it makes sense to have some of these static messages like print and radio and TV, but we have new daily specials. We'll have weekly specials. A guest will come in with their beautiful dog on the patio. Like, there's a lot of now in the moment stuff. And the only way to get that out there is through social. So it definitely is a big focus for us.
So do you really have to work with the owners of these businesses to say that, hey, you've got to, look for great things so that we can post on the social all the time, as well as that user-generated content that you really like?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because that is one of the hardest things for me to break open in first conversations with business owners. And what I do is we usually schedule just one big shoot, and it's more just a product shoot. We'll try to shoot every dish. We'll try to grab some video of employees in the kitchen and the front house, and we'll have all this content that we can fall back on. And then the hard part is that in the moment, spur of the moment, photo, video, whatever happening, that I'm not there for to capture every single day. And we kind of just ask the owners or their managers to just send some of that content to us if you capture it. If not, it's not, it's your secondary goal here. Your main goal is to have just great service, great food. But if we can have some great photos, it's going to drive more customers to experience that great service and great food.
And then there's the other aspect of it, which is really important for restaurants as well, is the reviews.
Yeah. Oh man, reviews are a good time. So we do make calls to action for some of our posts every couple of months or maybe once a month, just to remember to review the restaurant, good or bad. Most of my owners really do want legitimate feedback. If you had a bad experience, we absolutely do want to make that right. And messaging those responses to reviews is definitely can be stressful. Just making sure you understand what their true complaint is and making sure that we can rectify it. And it's a little bit outside of the marketing realm, but it's something we absolutely keep an eye on and send to our owners and say, hey, how can we remedy the situation? Luckily, we mostly get good reviews. I think the bad review trend is on its way out. I don't know.
Well, it's not great to get bad reviews, but like you said, people want to know if they have done something wrong. It's the only way that you learn sometimes. But it seems like, especially for businesses that have, or restaurants that have been in business for a few years, we're talking hundreds of reviews for some restaurants. How does that impact the rankings for, restaurants near me in your local area?
Oh, it's huge. So a step outside of social would be like a Google business page, and we manage those as well for our hospitality groups. And the more reviews and the more user-generated like content as far as blog or video goes, the more our restaurant will show up. And you want to have positive reviews because Google does take that into consideration big time. Especially when you're just searching loosely like sushi near me or sandwiches near me. You want to have enough reviews that you actually show up on that slice, and they need to be positive reviews. And I would add, a good way to drive that review traffic is actually in store with some sort of display or on the bottom of receipts. And you can kind of drive it more if you do something like one of my restaurant groups does, and we do monthly $25 gift card drawings. You see it on national brands as well on the bottom of big chain receipts that fill out this survey and get $1,000. So the survey is a good way to do it because it takes you off of those review platforms. So if you did have a bad time, it's not reflecting on our online presence. But with the smaller clients I have, we don't necessarily have the time to sift through everything like that. So we just kind of own up to it and say, hey, let's do it all online. And if you had a bad time, you had a bad time. And we're going to respond to those comments, every single one of them, good or bad, and just show that we are listening and we want everyone to have a great time.
So it seems like really getting known and sharing people's experiences is important for these restaurant industry businesses. But what other big problems are you able to help them solve, or what other big problems do they have?
Sure. One thing I get really excited about is planning events for restaurants or hospitality groups. And it kind of falls in marketing, you could argue, but it definitely is its own little slice. And the events are great because it gets a lot of new people to your location, and it gets a lot of co-branding events happening. So I have a good example. One of my restaurants, they serve poke bowls, and they just have a beautiful patio, and it's they kind of play on the health aspect of food, and just the owners love dogs. So they did this idea of poke and paws, and we have events on the patio when it's warm outside, of course, and you bring your dog, your pup, and he gets free poke treats and bandanas and tennis balls, and they're all branded. And we have all these great photos of people with their dogs on our patio. And then we team up with a local nonprofit that you can adopt dogs from. So it's like a foster nonprofit, which just, again, goes back into that community, building those relations and just showing that, we're actually engaged with our city and our patrons. So I think that's a lot of fun for driving new business, and it kind of falls a little bit outside of the realm. And they're all, end of the day, a restaurant, their goal is to sell food. So the more food I can sell, the better they're doing.
Right. Yeah, and with all the attention that these events bring, I'm sure it's a lot of fun seeing all the dogs there. We'll bring in customers for years to come, which is the whole goal: selling more food.
Yeah.
What kind of misconceptions or myths are there surrounding the restaurant industry and marketing for them?
Myths or misconceptions. I know one thing that's really hard to work with restaurants on is kind of their image on social media. I mean, we want everything to be perfect and well lit, and this slice of cucumber needs to go here. And it's great to have just a perfect page, but that's false advertising in my mind. I mean, I want our bowls to be or any food to be realistic, to show what the customer is going to come in and get. And sometimes they do come in and get that just absolutely perfect dish. But I think that would be the biggest misconception, is that everything has to be absolutely perfect on social. And I like to call that like the Instagram effect. And I don't think I've even coined that phrase. I think someone else has, but everyone's living their perfect life on Instagram and they're posting their best stuff. But I really like hey, we just made these sandwiches and they came out and it's this new pastrami and it's just gosh darn delicious, and here's the picture right here, we just made it and it's still dripping a little bit and the bread's a little soggy, but I mean, my mouth is watering. It's more in the moment, more raw and realistic, and I like that. So I'd kind of chalk that one up to myths of everything has to be perfect.
Right. I think about walking into a McDonald's or a Burger King and seeing the pictures of the Whoppers and the Big Macs, and then you get it in the little box and you're like, what's this?
Yeah, that is the ultimate example.
This isn't a real actual sample of what you're giving me here.
Right. Yeah, perfect example.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of the fears that these restaurants, owners might have about getting an outside digital marketing company to do some of the marketing for them?
Yeah, so cost is definitely a big fear for them. Food margins are already kind of low, and food actually has the slowest. Oh gosh, can't think of the terminology, but as inflation goes up, menu prices don't change, and food is one of the biggest or the slowest followers of actual costs. And there's a lot of reasons to that. I don't really need to go into that, but the biggest is the minute you change your Big Mac from $5 to $6 or $7 to catch up with inflation, well, you never have one Big Mac for $5 as your pitch, and people will notice and they're upset, even though it's $1. But biggest concern would be cost, and I try to just walk them through the steps and show them why the cost is associated with digital marketing, what kind of value they're going to receive. And the first couple of months are definitely hard to get them through, but once we break through and can show them some real numbers and some real user posts and some real people that commented on a photo and said, man, this looks good. And then we see the post a week later that they came in and got the thing that they said, this looks good. We start to see that there's a lot of value, and I'm always honest with them, and I want them to know you need to make more money than I'm charging you so that this continues to make sense, but also it's a good investment for you. And I think just being clear with them up front makes people a lot more comfortable.
Right. There's a lot to be said for branding and getting your name out there and getting that kind of recognition for what you do. But, ultimately, these business owners are in business to make a profit, and they want to see the bottom line. How easy is it to share that kind of data with them?
Yeah, so it's really hard. That's probably the hardest thing in marketing, I would argue, is just measurement. So even if we're posting a weekly special, the only way I can measure it is by tracking how many people came in and got the weekly special. But that doesn't mean that they came in because of the social post or because of the ad we placed or because it was all over the website. I mean, they could have just had wanted to already go to the restaurant and saw it on the menu and been like, yeah, I'm going to try that. So it is hard to measure, but things like weekly specials or daily specials or coupons are definitely the best way to track if we really wanted to see what's working. we would run something on the website, or in our email marketing, we would say, hey, come in and use this 10% off coupon. And then we would just track redemptions of that.
Mm-hmm. So if a restaurant is trying to do it all themselves, what are some of the common mistakes or pitfalls they make in their marketing?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. And this is why I like to work with restaurants. So owners of restaurants are very artistic people. They have a passion for their food. That's the reason they're in the business. Common mistakes would be that they don't have time to focus on it. They don't have time to focus on digital or social, or updating their website, or managing their email lists, or even placing ads. They should just have time to run their staff, run their hirings, run their restaurant, perfect recipes, create new recipes. So I kind of look at them like artists. I want the artist to be an artist. I don't want my artist to have to worry about all these extra things of getting people to come see their art. I want them to just make their art and know people want to come see it. And I want to get their art in front of as many people as possible. I know it's a kind of a weird analogy to relate food to, but I want them to be just chasing their passion. And my main goal with all my clients is to just take that load off of their shoulders so they can worry about other stuff.
Right. And what I say all the time is, stay in your lane. You do what you're good at, and let somebody else do what they're good at. And it generally works better when you can, collaborate, or have, experts doing what they're excellent at.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Talk to me about a couple of your clients, maybe, how you've been able to help them overcome some of these obstacles. Give me an example of what kind of problems that they had when they came to you, what you were able to do and implement for them, and ultimately what that outcome was.
Sure. So I have a great client that I've been working with for just over 3 years. They're one of my first clients in the food industry, actually. And they're a local brewery, brew pub, sorry. They're a full restaurant and a full brewery. And when I approached them, they had virtually no social presence. Their website was just dated, perhaps even Flash. So they weren't getting any good Google hits for people trying to call them, look at their menu. They just did not exist on the web, and they're just they brew great beer. They have great food, and it's priced so low. I always tell people, hey, if you want to go eat a king's meal for nothing, this is where you need to go. And they even serve their great beer for $2.50. Their handcrafted beer is $2.50. That's cheaper than a domestic beer. So they've got it all going on, but they just didn't know. They just weren't getting that word out there. So we put together a plan. We claimed all their online assets, from social media to Google to building a website to adding their menu to Postmates, Uber Eats, whatever. I mean, they're everywhere now. And now they have weekly events. They have bands every weekend, bingo, free bingo nights. And now they've got more butts and seats, is what I like to say. If you have butts and seats, you're selling food and you're selling beer. And it took a long time to kind of develop that online brand, since they started from nothing. And we've reached this point to where people regularly know, hey, Friday, I need to be at Belle Isle to catch a live music performance, grab some cold beers, get their pizza special. And it's reached that point to where users are generating content for us. People already have this kind of subconscious mindset that they know where to go listen to great local live music. So we branded them as more than just this restaurant, but it's an entertainment destination now. And that was an awesome story to work with them on. And I've also worked with another restaurant group here, and they opened a brand new concept, and I got to start with them from day one, got to help them with their launch party and some of those events like Poke and Paul's, actually. Got to create their menu for them, and it's a slick design, real thin menu, and you build your own bowl. It's really quick and easy to read. Got to create signage throughout the restaurant so people can, because it's kind of a fast-paced restaurant, so we wanted people to be able to get in and get out no problem. So kind of creating a flow for that restaurant was a lot of fun.
Excellent. And when you have good food and good beers, and people are going to talk about it. But with a little bit of social and marketing, it's like that accelerant that you put on the fire just to kind of explode it. What might have taken 2-3 years to get to one point, you could probably do in 2 or 3 months with a great social campaign.
Absolutely.
So tell me, Chris, what inspired you to get into this business in the first place?
Well, I've always enjoyed marketing. So I started off really young. My mom owns her own business. She's a dentist and she has a private practice. And I don't know, in high school, I just kind of was telling all my friends about her, and they would go to her, and I was like, this is kind of fun. And then built her a little crappy website back then. It was just terrible. Now it wouldn't stand up to what I could do today, but I was just doing it for fun. And she legitimately got new patients off of that. And I thought, this is super cool. Went to school and kind of decided, hey, I'm going to try to major in this. And school put me through a lot and helped me kind of get some of the actual knowledge, the correct way to build websites, stuff like that. And then I broke into the food market by that just always being my passion. I love to cook. And that's probably my biggest flaw is I love to cook because it means I go to restaurants less often than I probably should for how often I work with restaurants, but I think they get it. And then once I just had my first food client, first restaurant client, it grew from there, just had a lot of fun. I kind of got familiar with the business and got to reach out to new people and say, hey, I work with XYZ. And then they'd be like, that's great. You should come work with us. And then just kind of took off from there.
Right. And that's your own branding as well from success, which is excellent. Now tell me about creating attention for yourself. You got to give me the story of the Fruit Loops. What inspired that?
So I'm a bit of a wild card, and I think I hit on it quite a few times. I love food. So anytime I can have some fun on my own, I do. So I took this idea in my head. I thought, man, it's been a while since I've done a good photo shoot. And I just sent out this tweet. I said, hey, does anyone have a clawfoot tub? And within 15 seconds, one of my clients now actually texted me and said, hey, I've got a clawfoot tub you can borrow. I'm like, all right, let's do it. So I grabbed this clawfoot tub, bring it to my backyard. I'm like, this is a beautiful tub. What should I do? I should fill it with milk and Fruit Loops. And I should bring out my photographer friend and then my friend that has a drone. We should do a Vogue shoot. So I have these like really strangely seductive photos of me in the milk bath with Fruit Loops. And it's just kind of just wanted to spice people's life up a little bit and make them be like, oh, what is Chris doing? But in the best way possible.
Yeah, well, it definitely grabs attention. When I saw that photo, I was like, what on earth is this? And, you got to look into it more. And it's really all about attention. Hey, there's been a whole industry created on that kind of stuff on Instagram and YouTube with people doing crazy things. But, if people don't know about you, they're not going to do business with you. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons that people need to learn. So if speaking of lessons, if there's a lesson that you learned early on in your business that still impacts how you do business today, what might that be, Chris?
I have actually a really good lesson that I learned early on. And it's don't be afraid to say no, and don't be afraid to fire a client. When I first started, like I mentioned real early on, I would just take anyone that I could get, right? And that's great. That's a good way to grow. I was very hungry. But the stress caused by some clients who I, of course, no longer work with, really at the end of the day, didn't boil out to being even worth it. And it was just making my life miserable. And I would brag on every single one of my clients that I have right now that they are great to work with. And if they have complaints, I want to hear them so I can improve. And all of them let me know some feedback, and it's good stuff. But if you have a certain client and you guys just don't mesh, it's not worth your time.
Now, from the other aspect of it, if it's a client looking for a marketing company, what are some of the important questions that they should be asking to make sure that they are dealing with the right person?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would go in knowing kind of exactly what you want. So if you want just someone to run your social, if you want someone just to create graphics for you, website, just to run your ad campaigns, if you know what your wants are, you can already eliminate a long conversation with the marketing team that's going to sell you on everything they've got. So you don't want to sit through that pony show. You want to just go in and kind of know what you already want. And then at the end of the day, for me personally, I just would make sure it's someone you want to be working with. It's someone you can feel comfortable giving a call and saying, hey, we're not doing this special anymore. Go ahead and let people know, or we're closed on a holiday. I know that's going to be hard for you to write, but just having a team you can trust.
Yep, and at the end of the day, that trust is one of the most important factors that is going to get somebody to hand over money, no matter what kind of business that you're in. It does come back to trust.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Chris, this has been great. If somebody wants to reach out to you to find out more, what is the best way for them to do that?
You can hit me up on social media. All my handles are the Chris Cox with no spaces. If you want to do business, it's OOTWmarketing.com.
And that's Out of This World Marketing. We've been listening to Chris Fox. He's the founder of Out of This World Marketing in Oklahoma City. Chris, thank you very much for being my guest on Trust Factor Radio today.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was a blast.
And to our listening audience, if you like what you hear, hit that like button and share, and we'll see you next time on the show.
You've been listening to the Trust Factor Radio with Neil Howe. To learn about the resources mentioned in the show and to listen to past episodes, go to thetrustfactorradio.com. To get a copy of the book, The Trust Factor, go to thetrustfactorbook.com. If you are ready to act now and build your authority, credibility, and trust, schedule a consultation with Neil at theauthorityarchitect.com.